Are you looking for a way to make sure you are prepared to practice law? Well, I'm going to show you how to use Lexis Advanced to do just that. My name is Eric Dye, and I am a Lexis representative for law schools in the Midwest region of the U.S. I'm happy to be helping you as you get ready to work in U.S. law offices this summer. I'm going to start out today by making sure you are all on the same page as me. I am starting out on Lexis Advanced. You can access Lexis Advanced by going to www.advanced.lexis.com. Before I jump into helping you use Lexis Advanced to be prepared to practice, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I come to my role as a Lexis rep by way of having attended UC Davis Law School in Northern California, then serving as an attorney to the California State Legislature for 5 years, drafting opinions and bills in a nonpartisan role, and then clerking for 2 Michigan judges. So I've had lots of experience getting random legal research projects thrown my way, and will share that experience with you today to show you how to be prepared to practice and how Lexis Advanced will get you there. So the purpose of today's workshop is to show you how to use Lexis Advanced in your summer jobs and when you begin to practice after law school. The process I will use to achieve this will be to use Lexis Advanced with you guys today to show you how to tackle the following projects that a supervising attorney will likely ask you to do. 1. Research an unfamiliar topic. 2. Research statutes and regulations. And 3. Draft a complaint. Partners in law firms say that only 5% of recent legal grads have enough legal research skills to practice. So the payoff for watching today's video is that you will be able to shine as one of those 5% when you are able to confidently use Lexis Advanced to tackle these common research assignments. Plus, this training today is the first step you're taking towards getting Lexis certified to prove that you are truly ready to practice. And I'll provide you more information about certification at the end of today's training. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to talk about researching an unfamiliar topic. I'm sure most of you have heard stories by now about the random assignments that supervising attorneys have thrown at summer associates and new attorneys. In fact, these random topics tend to stick with us even years after we have been in practice. I will always remember my first assignment as a new legislative lawyer. I was told that I needed to draft a bill about sober living homes. I knew nothing about it, but Lexis Advanced helped me get up to speed so that I could draft that bill, and I won't ever forget that topic. So let's go ahead and use an example of one of these random types of topics that you might encounter. Let's say you are working at an employment law office and there is a potential new client who states that he has experienced harassment and discrimination in his workplace. He alleges this negative treatment was based on his sexual orientation. Your supervising attorney asks you to prepare a memo that answers the question of whether Title VII of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. So what do you do now? Well, secondary sources are always going to be your best friend when you are unfamiliar with an area of law that has been thrown your way. Why is that? Because secondary sources are written by experts, and you want to become an expert in an area of law, so you use the secondary sources to learn from the experts. So let's get started by finding some secondary sources to help us out. And what we're going to do to try to find secondary sources to help us get up to speed is we're going to go ahead and type in a keyword search into the red search box, just like we were doing a Google search. So let's type in Title VII, because we know this issue deals with Title VII, and sexual orientation, because we might have discrimination based on sexual orientation. So let's do a search for those terms. And then once we do that, Lexis will first give you a list of cases on those terms, but we want to start with secondary sources. So we can click secondary sources on the left-hand side of the screen to see those results. And then once we do that, just like everything we do on Lexis, first we search for terms, then we pick what type of document we want, here's secondary materials, and then we start narrowing down by using the narrow by options on the left-hand side of the screen. Here, I really just want to see what treatises have to say about this issue. So let's click treatises as the category. And you'll see right off the bat here, the very second hit, larceny on employment discrimination, you'll see the little blurb here talks about how this deals with sexual orientation in private employment. That's looking a lot like what we're interested in knowing more about. And in fact, this source here is larceny on employment, which, just so you know, is one of the primary sources out there on employment law, and it's exclusively available to you on Lexis. So let's go ahead and click into this source to see if this might help us out. So once we do that, we can kind of scroll through it, and you'll see really quickly that it tells you that sexual orientation is excluded from coverage under Title VII. However, it talks about how gender stereotyping might be another way to get at the claim. So this is really going to help you have enough information to answer the supervising attorney's question. So when you respond to your supervising attorney, make sure you support your work, though, by citing to the various cases and statutes that you're going to be able to find right here in the secondary source. Because you'll notice the expert tells you what the law is, and then we have the footnotes where you can actually see what the statute is or what the cases are that the expert is citing. So once you put that all down in a memo to the partner, you should be good to go on this first assignment looking into a topic that you don't know anything about at the beginning. The next thing that you might be asked to do is to do some statutory and regulatory research. So let's continue with our hypothetical. Let's say after you submit your memo to your supervising attorney, that they respond by thanking you for your work, and then ask you to explore the matter a little further. Specifically, your supervising attorney thinks that given the fact that there might be a claim for sex discrimination based on gender stereotyping, they want you to figure out what exactly it means to be discriminated against because of one's sex under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And they want you to look for any kind of regulations or Equal Employment Opportunity Commission decisions on the topic. So here we need to look into Title VII more, and we need to look into regulations and what the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission might have said. So this is going to involve doing some statutory research. So in this case, you know the statute you need to deal with is Title VII. However, sometimes you don't know what statute you need to look at, and that's where using the secondary sources we went over earlier can really help you out. But here we know the statute. So to conduct statutory research on Lexis Advanced, you can use a method called SRAC. Similar to the IRAC technique you use in legal writing, but in this case for statutory research. So the S in SRAC stands for statute. You will retrieve the statute in question, then read the text of the statute along with the annotations. The R is for regulations. You will find any regulations that were promulgated under the statute. So regulations are rules created by agencies to implement the statute, and these rules have the force of law. So you'll need to be up to speed on these in addition to the statutes. The A in SRAC stands for administrative materials. You will want to find any relevant agency decisions or administrative guidelines. In this case, you're going to be on the lookout for EEOC decisions. The C in SRAC stands for cases. So you will want to find cases that interpret and apply the statute, regulations, and administrative materials that you found earlier. Now let's put this technique into practice. We can go back to the same search we did earlier for Title VII and sexual orientation. To quickly get back to that search, you can just go back up to History and click on the search for Title VII and sexual orientation you did earlier. So in applying SRAC, the first thing we're going to need to do is look for a relevant statute. We know we're dealing with Title VII, which is a big statute, so we're going to try to narrow down and see what in Title VII will be useful to us. So when we do a search like Title VII and sexual orientation, to find the statute, we can just click Statutes and Legislation on the left-hand side of the screen. Now, like we always do, let's narrow down our results. Here, I know that I'm dealing with a federal law, so I just want to look at the United States Code where the federal laws are, Title 1 through 54. So let's narrow down to just that. And when I do that, I will see the very second hit that pops up looks to be the definition section of Title VII. Oftentimes when you're doing a legal research assignment, especially statutory research, the place to start is by finding the definitions portion of a statute, because that's really going to help orient you. And in our case, our supervising attorney specifically wants to know what it means, how it's defined to be discriminated against because of sex. So let's go ahead and click on this statute. And when we scroll through the statute, the terms are all defined in different subsections. And in skimming it over, you'll see that subsection K actually defines what it means to be discriminated against because of sex. So this is really what we're interested in, but statutes can be dense and difficult to understand on your own. So this is where you can actually use the case notes that LexisNexis provides you. Lexis provides you with a list of cases that actually interpret the statute to help you understand it better. So to quickly get to the case notes in a statute, you can use the Go To drop-down menu at the top of the page to go directly to the case notes section, which we put after the statute text itself. This is an important statute, so there's a lot of case notes that we've got organized. The cases are all organized by topic. When you scroll through all of these different topics of cases talking about this statute, you'll notice right towards the very end, we've got cases that deal with this statute in the context of a sexual orientation claim. Let's go ahead and click the blue down arrow to take a look at those cases. Here they are. These are definitely going to be of interest to us, and we're going to want to take a look at them to make sure we're understanding this statute as courts have interpreted it. Another way you might find cases interpreting this statute is to actually shepherdize this statute. Just like you would shepherdize a case, you can shepherdize a statute to find all cases that cite to your particular statute. So you can do that by clicking Shepherdize this document on the right-hand side of the screen. And on Lexis, when you shepherdize a statute, you can actually run a shepherd's report within a shepherd's report. And what that report will tell you are all the cases that cite to a particular subsection of the statute you're interested in. So here, if you're just interested in subsection K, you can find a shepherd's report telling you about cases that talk just about subsection K. And being able to narrow down like that is going to save you a ton of time, and you can only do that with shepherds on Lexis. So in reading over this statute and the case law interpreting it, what you'll end up finding is that discrimination based on sexual orientation is an unsettled area of law. So you will want to check what other sources have to say on the topic. This brings us to the next step in the SRAC process, regulations. Regulations are rules that are promulgated by a government agency to implement a statute. And as I said earlier, regulations have the force of law, so we want to see what these have to say. One agency that promulgates regulations in this area of law is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. The EEOC has been specifically charged with adopting regulations that interpret and implement Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So we will want to see if they have anything out there regarding sexual orientation discrimination. So when you're looking at federal regulations, you're going to see that they're published as they come out in the Federal Register, so it's chronological, and then later published together, organized by topic, in the Code of Federal Regulations. So there are a couple of ways to find regulations on your topic, but just know that you'll see them both in Federal Register form and in Code of Federal Regulations form. So the first way to find regulations on your topic is when you are in your statute. So here we're in our statute we're interested in. Let's actually go back up to the top of the screen so we're at the beginning of the statute. Here we are. This was our statute we found earlier with our search. When you're in there, instead of using the drop-down menu to go to case notes like we did before, you can go to Research References and Practice Aids. And this is going to give you a list of all of the regulations that implement this statute. Alternatively, to find regulations, we could go back to our original search. So let's go back to the top of the screen again. Remember, we can always get back to our original search by clicking on History, going back to the original search. And this time, to find regulations on Title VII and sexual orientation, we can just click on Administrative Codes and Regulations. And here we will find Federal Register and CFR documents on our topic. And in reading through these regulations, what you'll find is that they do not specifically address sexual orientation discrimination, but they do talk a lot about what it means to be discriminated against on the basis of sex, so they can be useful. However, where can we look for a discussion about sexual orientation discrimination specifically? Well, there is the possibility that the administrative agency, EEOC in this case, has come out with an opinion or guidelines that clarify even further in addition to their regulations. So this is where we get to the next step in the SRAC process. We're going to want to look at agency decisions and other administrative materials. To look at administrative materials, let's back up and go ahead and go back to our original search of Title VII and sexual orientation. And this time, let's go ahead and click on Administrative Materials. And then we're going to want to narrow down. We know here we're specifically interested in what the EEOC has to say, so you can click EEOC. And then you can keep narrowing down from there to try to see if there are any opinions out there dealing with sexual orientation discrimination. So the final step of the SRAC process is to look at cases. We already found many cases by looking at the case note annotations on a statute and by shepherdizing the statute. We can also find cases by going back to our original search and then taking a look at the cases that pop up in that search, and then to start to narrow down those cases. So using this SRAC process will give you some structure to your research and provide you with the relevant statutes, regulations, agency materials, and cases you need to answer the supervising attorney's question. So, let's say that after you've done this work, after submitting your memo to the supervising attorney, you get a response asking you to draft a complaint claiming that the client was discriminated against on the basis of sex in violation of Title VII. When you are given a drafting assignment, you can use Lexis Advanced to find samples of pleadings and forms. These samples will help you double-check to make sure that you include every essential element necessary to file. To access a sample complaint for this client, we will go back to our initial search, and then we're going to click Briefs, Pleadings, and Motions on the left-hand side of the screen. And now we're actually going to narrow down these results. We know we're interested in a complaint, which is a type of pleading. So let's go ahead and click on Pleadings. And then you'll notice actually the very second result here indicates that it is a complaint. So this is a complaint dealing with Title VII and sexual orientation. Let's go ahead and click on that complaint. In reading the text of this complaint, you'll see that the complaint alleges two causes of action: discrimination on the basis of sex and discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. So we could model our complaint accordingly. And in fact, these complaints and sample pleadings that Lexis provides are particularly powerful to you because we try to make sure we post briefs that were actually won in court. So then if you want to make sure your formatting is correct, you can click on Original Source Image on the right-hand side of the page, and this will pull up a PDF that shows you exactly how your complaint should look, because this is exactly how it was filed in the court. So now you know how to use Lexis Advanced to complete the 3 most common tasks performed by summer associates, interns, new associates, and law clerks. 1, you know how to begin research on an unfamiliar topic of law. 2, you know how to complete statutory and regulatory research. And 3, you know how to find sample pleadings for drafting assignments. Knowing how to complete these tasks efficiently will really make you prepared to practice. This will let you be among the 5% of law school graduates who have the practical skills needed to do their work. Now I know that was a lot of information, but please know that you are not alone. If you get stuck, please feel free to call our 24/7 customer support hotline at 1-800-45-LEXIS. Now to ensure that you get credit for watching this video, please make sure to click the link to the Google Doc quiz that appears underneath this video. Additionally, I want you to know that this video is the first step towards getting your Lexis Professional Research certification. Shortly after viewing this video, you should receive an email with a link to the Prepare to Practice Skills video, so a second video. In this video, you will see how to use Lexis Advanced to draft a motion and an agreement, 2 of the other most common tasks assigned to new associates. Upon watching the second video and completing the quiz on that video, you will receive instructions on how to complete a 12-question assessment. Successfully completing each of these steps, so the first two videos and the assessment, will lead to your Lexis certification, which you can then include on your resume and as a badge on LinkedIn. Law offices are looking for good researchers, and this certification will indicate that you are among the 5% who have the skills needed to do the job. Thanks so much for viewing today, and good luck out there in practice.